come in and talk about some part management, some stuff that we've done in the past, some ways to manage, make sure that your vendors are correct and all, and do some audits that we go through. So might as well get started. This is the same slide you've probably seen 2 or 3 times today. So we just want to talk about a little bit about part setup in Lawson, managing part levels, integration with mobile supply chain, reporting, and some best practices. Now, how many in here are using mobile supply chain within the institute? So for me, everybody. Karen, why not?
I am honestly not sure what they're doing there.
I thought we implemented.
I think they're using it for one thing, but not in full blown.
But mobile supply chain, if you're not using it, it just makes part counting so much easier. It's so seamless when it works perfectly. One thing that we wanted to touch on is the item location versus part location. That some people, when they first get into it, don't realize that an IC81 par creates an IC12 in the background. You cannot touch anything in that IC12. You can view it, but all of your edits and everything need to be made through the IC81 par forms, either IC2, IC331, mass change. But it does build an item location in the background, it builds a ship to location in the background, and it builds a requesting location in the background. So as many of you know, when you build out your par, build a new par, you have to go through your RQ01 for that par location and put in your accounting unit. Otherwise, it's going to fail, especially with, well, anytime, because whether it's Lawson going directly through the portal or through mobile supply chain.
So when I create the IC81, it's going to create when I do a drop down on IC12, it's going to be in there.
It will be in there, yes.
So then that creates a lot of things in my IC12, and that's a lot of data. How do I
You can do
make that go away?
You can do a resort at the top of your drill around or your select screen, and then you have another drop down where you can select locations. I just can't picture off the top of my head right now what the topics are on the select screen.
There's a filter of some sort.
There is a filter of some sort of that should go through it. If you're doing any item location queries, you can always tie back to your item. If you're going for your IC12 item load table, you can tie it to your IC location table, and there's a type record in there that flags as P for par. So when you pull out your item loads, if you're just doing a drop down, you have multiple item loads, you can just flag off, tie into that, and say not like P, and that way you're not pulling out any of your par location data too. Or you can just use item load type P and pull your par information out into a spreadsheet instead of leaving out your item location between it.
Your ICD1 locations also come into MSCM automatically with the activity of a par location. For IC12 locations, you have to designate that as a stock or your inventory location in MSCM.
And please let us know if you cannot hear us. There's 3 of us here, and there's only one lapel mic and one handheld mic.
Can you repeat what you just said?
When you build an IC81 par location, that when that updates into MSCM, it can only be a par location. So MSCM automatically checks that activity off as a par location. But if you're implementing MSCM or you've built a new inventory location, you have to go into location management on the mobile supply chain side and check off that it is an inventory location or a receiving location as well.
That way you can do your cycle counts with using the PC application, just based off on that location instead of your par. Reads it out, different functionality. We have to. Well, I didn't know there was a meeting. Okay. So, as we were talking, the IC81 creates an RQ01 and it creates the ICO2 because RQ01 is your internal delivery address from your storerooms, and an ICO2 is your external address because you can have stock and non-stock on your par locations. The ongoing maintenance, we talked about, you have your IC 81.2, your vendor source, versus your agreement vendor source. I don't know if you want to get into this.
Sure.
Stephanie's built a lot of custom reporting off of this.
So, how do you keep the information in sync? People who are managing their PARs, they need to identify who the source is, and they add it themselves. However, your agreement may be for a different vendor, and they make the wrong selection. You're going to have some sourcing errors there. So these are just some ideas on things that you can do to manage those types of things that can happen. So this is IC 81.2 vendor source does not equal the vendor agreement source. Also unit measures, they may be adding it to their par cart. It always goes off that number 1 transaction unit measure in IC 11. So especially if it's non-stock, you really want to make sure that your buy number 1 is also your transact number 1. So when they add it to the par cart, it automatically adds it at that buy unit measure. However, you may have a par that's set up that isn't used for replenishment. It's just more of a tracking mechanism. It's actually replenished from another par behind the scenes. You may want to eliminate those and allow them to have a different unit of measure. There's also some of the MSCM errors that you may experience. They create unreleased requisitions. So basically that one item that errored out stays in MSCM, but all other items on your rec, they go into RQ10, it's unreleased, and someone has to go in there and release that RQ10. So that's just another idea on things that you can do to monitor. And then you could be working on an agreement in PO25 and it's unreleased. That can cause issues when they're trying to replenish their areas and the system doesn't know who to go to grab the cost.
Regarding the infamous MSCM errors that you get, the upload errors, I've heard rumors that Lawson might be working on something where, because right now when you get an upload error and it's caused by one bad item, it puts all the good items on a rec and the rec goes unreleased. And you got to have a user savvy enough to like do something with that, basically. You know, I heard that they might be working on something where they put all the good items on a released rec, take the bad item or whatever you want to call it and put it on a separate rec. I think I was actually at an Inform one time where some organization, I can't remember who, actually wrote their own code.
Yep.
Yeah, to actually, yeah.
They had an IPA workflow.
Who was it?
New York Presbyterian.
Oh, that's right. I New York Presbyterian. Yeah.
Very impressive. They created a process flow that basically found the rec, released it, and then notified the user to let them know the item wasn't built. And certain things like account number isn't active, that also can cause a rec error and do the same thing. So in those instances, it actually emailed the person in finance to create, to activate that account number within their GL.
You're not aware of Lawson working on something that would do some similar functionality, though?
I personally haven't heard that.
Okay.
And I think I have an example of one of the reports. Yeah.
I think that's an enhancement that's never been
Yeah.
looked at.
Yeah.
You made a statement of a par pulling from another par behind the scenes. It's my understanding in Lawson the par cannot pull from a par, so.
You're correct. It'd be like a manual process of someone actually doing that themselves. So if they do that and you're just tracking those items, you know, 2 rolls of a ace bandage or something like that, they could have it built on their par that way, but they would never use that for replenishment. So I was just mentioning it so that you would not have that be a part of your reporting process, so you didn't waste your time. You knew they weren't going to replenish from that par. They're just using it as a kind of placeholder as to what's in that profit. But yeah, you can't do that. So this is just an example of a custom report of, you know, here's that PO13 vendor, and here's the IC81 vendor, and they're different. And typically the person that's managing this would be someone different than who's managing the par. But if you have savvy users in the materials department, this could be on their LBI dashboard and they can monitor it after they do some maintenance on their pars to make sure it was set up appropriately.
This all can be done also, you don't have to use LBI, you don't have to use crystal reports. You can just use add-in queries and, you know, just do VLOOKUPs and such, you know, anybody that has proficiency with Excel can pretty much go through and do these audits. But using the Christmas reports or LBI, it's just pretty much nice little click here and you get all your information in front of you.
Is the information always going to be a one-for-one match in order to use VLOOKUP?
Well, that's true. You could have an item with multiple vendors, multiple PO13 records.
Right.
There, in the case you probably want to do an if statement or something, you know, looking at, you know, we're laying out a spreadsheet so you can say, is this vendor, does it match this one? If not, does it match this one? If not, does it match this one? And then,
Or throw it
if
in
it errors
access
out,
or something, okay.
yeah.
Alright.
You know, you'd have to, you know, you'd have to know the Excel, building formulas and queries throughout
Right,
Excel
okay.
working.
I just wanted to make sure, because people that don't know that VLOOKUPs are one-for-one, that's important, no.
Yeah, they'll find the first record and I'll tell you what the second record.
Mhm.
Now, this is saying manage your par levels. ICO3 report groups, these are definitely needed. They are the only way to, you know, do a change on a grouping of forms, or all it is a segregation of saying these pars belong to this group. I'm sure your materials management use ICO3s for your physical inventories or groups that are needed for that purpose. But this is just to say how I'm going to report on it. So you can take all of your pars in OR, certain, put them in a certain report group so you can just report on them. Or you can put all your pars into just one report group, and that way you just, you know, grab them all at one time.
Yeah, it can save a lot of time just by grouping them together and not have to run each report individually for each location. And this is just, you know, some suggestions on different tables to pull information from to help you create your own custom reporting, or where to pull information out of Lawson and utilize, you know, Excel, have your own auditing processes. Kind of managing those par levels, what items are added on this par that haven't been ordered in the past year? Why are they still there? Are they obsolete? Is someone just not managing that par? So by utilizing some, you know, invoice detail or purchase order history behind that can really help you out. Otherwise, I think there's only really one true par report. I see 184, but it can be difficult to sort through, and usually the user doesn't know what the report's trying to tell you back. So I think on the next slide, I have a couple of examples. I see 182. There's also the par location valuation, which is really beneficial to use. That's one that I really like to use the report groups on, so you can really group everything together. RQ230 and RQ260 will show you what's been requested. You all know about M280, and then PO58 could be used as well if you're just, you know, running reports ad hoc.
And I've seen the par valuation used in multiple situations in ORs where they don't want to do a full, you know, count. They just want to do reporting. They build out their pars and just report off of what my par level would be if all items are built to the max. And it will take your last paid cost, your last PO cost, and work out the pricing for you.
So this is just an example of a custom report, very simple, tells you whether it's stock or non-stock, what the unit measures are, what your par level is set out, and what the conversion factor is, how many you've ordered, what it's estimating the daily average usage to be, and whether or not you should up your par or remove it. To the next one. This one's a little bit more detailed. So this would tell you how many times it was ordered from the handheld, or how many times it was directly issued from the inventory location, what the current par is, how many were replenished, how often the user orders, and here it lets you know whether the par is good, you need to up it or decrease it. And then this last one here, I was really excited about. One of the most difficult things is your MMIS team is constantly making changes to your item master, and that's not always communicated back to the users of these items. And typically, you just say, well, if they're searching in RQC, they would see the changes there. It wouldn't be that big of a deal. But when it comes to PARs and you have these labels that you're updating, or you may have made a unit of measure conversion change or added something there, you really need to communicate to those end users. That can be really overwhelming depending on how large of an organization that you are, and really the reliance on your MMIS team to put together this communication and give all this detail to them. So this was a custom report that was built, which basically looks for utilizes the IC audit table, any change to the descriptions, manufacturer information, unit of measure, par level, or bin. It will feed this information here. So the user can actually, there was 2 separate reports. This one was by requesting location, by account unit. So we go off of our Q01 account unit. So they would take that in and all of the PARs that match that account unit. If it had a change, if they added the item, they would tell them to add a label. If any of those things changed, it would just say update a label, and if it was removed from the PAR, it would say remove label.
And this is just for like IC81 updates?
Correct.
Okay.
This was specific just to help them with the PARs.
So if the item master or IC12 or something was changed, it wouldn't reflect on here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. That's the whole purpose. So it's going off of item master and item location detail.
Okay.
So the PAR, you don't type in your own description. It's going off of the item master. And this unit of measure is meant to say it's both. It's both the IC11 unit of measure change, and if they change their PAR and change the unit of measure. There was also another one, that's a good point because this is just relating to PARs. But there was another one that I didn't include on here that was having more to do with every change in the item master and item location. Could be way too much information for the average user, but it could help with productivity as well. How many manufacturer changes did we have this month? Who's making the changes? So that's something that you could communicate as well, just to share the information. Here are all the items that we added this month. Here are all the manufacturer changes we made this month, and people could update their catalogs or people order sheets or whatever you may have.
And putting it in this format like a Chris report or such is so much easier than looking at the IC191 or IC192 audit files.
Mm-hmm. And the whole value here is that materials person could just go on the dashboard and run this themselves. It wouldn't be someone on the MMIS team sharing it each week. So they can just run this ad hoc as they so choose to, print it out, and update their labels.
Question.
Is that a canned report within Lawson, or is this?
No, I created it in Crystal.
I was
How did you get this
I knew it
report?
was.
Just give me a card and I'll share it.
I got your card.
Okay, you can email me and say.
But once you run it, how does the ad label, how do they fall off of this?
You run it by date range. So the user would, essentially run it each Friday, and they would grab the week's edits and then go to their shop and update it.
Right.
Going mobile.
Ken has immense experience with MSCM, so I'm going to take over a little bit.
Okay. All right. So we're talking a little bit about MSCM configurations. The first thing that you do, if you're running MSCM, you already know this. You have to create a Lawson security group on the S3 side, and those users need to be your MSCM users need to be assigned that group in order to show up in mobile supply chain. So that's one of the first steps that needs to take place. You want to separate your user administration, setup, and maintenance. So you want to separate what each person could do by creating, you can do a mobile supply chain process inventory. So what I've done in the past is pulled out all the roles available in mobile supply chain and just put your mobile supply chain users across the top, and check off what user could do what. If they're just going to do part counting, if they're just going to do issues or they're just working in the MSCM portal, what can each user do with mobile supply chain?
You did that by each individual?
On a spreadsheet, you mean?
Yeah, on a spreadsheet. So then you could group them together, and if there's a certain little bit of mismatch, it depends if you want to group them in the same mobile supply chain group, because each
Okay.
because in mobile supply chain there's separate security that is
Controls your tasks for now.
right. So they're mobile supply chain groups, and those users assigned to those groups have those mobile supply chain roles assigned to those groups as well. So whatever roles they have to that group, those users are able to do. The roles represent tasks in mobile supply chain. So location access is independent of the RQF4 requester security. So you assign location access to the individual users in mobile supply chain as well. But on the S3 side, for a user to enter par counts or create requisitions off that, they need to have the security access behind the scenes too. So if I'm entering a par count that's creating a requisition from a handheld, I need to have RQ10 and IC81 access in the Lawson side, in the Lawson portal. Some of the other setups, the configuration setups that are in here. So the max order quantity, there's a setup where you can decide how much above par you're allowing your users to order. So that's your max additional quantity. So if you're allowing users to order twice par, you could each par location you could set up to say allow these users to add double par if they need to. If you have a slimmed down crew on the weekends, on Fridays you could order twice your par or on Wednesday so it's there for the weekends. The quantity on order is a flag that you can show up. So if you look on the emulator image on the right hand side on QOO, that will show you how much you have on order. So if you're filling back orders, that's good to have up there to know that this is already on order. And that's the same thing that shows up if you're drilling on an item on IC12. It shows the on order quantity feeds into the handheld. So your par techs will see that as well.
Because everything pretty much, unless you have it set up with your vendor, this is primarily for your non-stocks, is to say, if they can't fill the back order, they have to kill it. If not, this allows the par tech to know it's already on order. They don't keep ordering it every time they count it because there's none on the shelf.
Okay, well, and the last one on there was my par forms. If you're not using that, that's something that's really helpful for your par techs to have or to utilize. It's just when they log into the par counting form on the handheld, it'll automatically show the pars that they're checked that they normally count. So it's a setup on the mobile supply chain side. So you go in on the user and access my par forms, and you assign. So say I count the same 10 pars every day. Stephanie counts a different set of pars. Jason counts another set of pars. You could assign them those pars I count every day, and when you click on count pars, they come in all checked, ready to download. So you just the download button, and it downloads all those forms. You still have access to all the other par forms that are available that by location. So if I have access to all par forms in MSCM, I could hit all par forms, and then it erases my par forms that I've checked off, and I could pick off other ones. So if Stephanie's out one day, I could go in, download my par forms, and check off the ones that she also counts to cover for her. So you still have access to all par forms if you're using my par forms.
Regarding assigning location access, one of the problems we have is, let's say a new par is added and we have to assign it to 8 different people. We have to go into each individual user ID in mobile and assign that new par to 8 people. Is there anything in mobile now or anything in the works where these 8 people are all part of one group? We have add a new par and we can just assign that par automatically to all 8 people at the same time.
So I'm not aware of that, but when you assign location access, you could assign all locations for a company to that user.
Well, I know you can do that, but no, these would be users that we want to do select access to only certain, par locations. So if that's the case, then is our only option what we're doing, just assigned by individual user?
Yeah, that's been brought up before, I've heard that before, especially where multi-facility or, it could be a regional, it could be multi-state with the same company number. They all fall within that same company number, and you don't want them to pick other hospitals, bars or not. That'd be a great enhancement. You get the third one now.
Yeah.
All right, I figured that would be the answer, but okay, I didn't know.
So basically, to your point, we can build it one way, but we can't build it another way, like in a mass load,
Well, yeah, well,
right?
you can create a par, the IC81, the RQ01, but then if you have to assign it to 8 different users, let's say you have 20
to do
users,
that manually for
you
each
have to,
person.
in mobile, do that user by user in
Right,
mobile.
that's what I mean.
Yeah,
But
correct.
if you have one new user and 8 different locations, you can do that as a mass load.
You could
No.
copy.
You could, yeah, I think there's a copy feature in mobile, I
There is.
think,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's by user. You copy a user's assignment to another user.
That's true, yeah. If it's a new user, yes, you could copy, yes.
So you still have to touch each person to copy to.
Yeah.
It's why I was referring more if there's a new par,
Yeah.
that's where, it's a pain, kind of like a pain.
Yeah.
Definitely something that you could build a process flow behind, to look for a certain piece of information. If you were going the report group route, if a new PAR is added to this report group, automatically add it to any user that has PARs in that report group or something like that. Yeah, that can be a lot of work.
Alright, so by show of hands, who's using just the out-of-the-box MSCM labels with Zebra printers?
Who even knows?
So do
Ours have been changed so many times, and now everybody's going away for, I just started this project yesterday, because our IT department says that you guys customized the label when it first came out because you didn't like the print, you couldn't see the font, you couldn't this, you couldn't that, so we customized it. Well then somewhere, and I've been there from the get-go, so then somebody went in and they wanted the PAR level put on. Well, we always said in the beginning, don't put the PAR level, because when you want to print multiple labels, then you have to go into each one of those PARs and do that instead of just finding it on one PAR and hitting it 20 times. So now somehow it got changed, nobody knows how. And now the storeroom says, I don't want to use these for my stock because they're too small. We're going to use a WASP printer. Then the other department says, well, for the PAR label, this floor wants to use, it begins with a P, a P-touch. P-touch, because they can make them smaller. And now our pharmacy, we're setting up PARs for pharmacy, and now they want to use an Intermet printer. And now they all want to have something different. So, and we're large, and I don't know how to get them all on the same page. And our IT is saying with 10X, when we go to 10X, let's just not do this customization anymore because it's something they always forget to do. And every time we do data verification, and this is our verification, it's never there. So we use the Zebra, is what we started with, and I guess that's even changing because we had nice Zebra printers, but now you can buy a Zebra printer for like $900 to $1,000. It's a different model. It makes all this racket. They're terrible and they're whatever. and then they just got done telling me yesterday that the label itself they don't like because on the WASP printer, they just go through, it gets rubbed off, it fades, it does this, it's not sticking. So I'm like, oh my God. So I sit up there and say, I just hope I can retire soon. What are you supposed to do for them? They all have valid issues.
Right, and every department has their different needs and requirements.
Yes.
So yeah, that's a tricky balance.
Sounds like a good project for a lead person.
From what?
For a lead project.
Lean Six Sigma.
Oh.
She's volunteering
So-
to come and come to your,
I don't know, that made me feel good.
That's my goal.
So there are some options to accommodate that, you know, but again, that could be causing more work and downstream effects on that. If you're using the Zebra printers, in order to get a label that you want customized, out of the box MSCM labels, they do the job, but they don't give you that. Without customizing the ZPL, the Zebra printer language, it's really hard to get the information you want to show on those labels. You can do that. So the top one is out of the box label, and then the two in the middle on the sides, those are customized ZPL labels. If you want to go another route, there are available third-party solutions. Some are relatively inexpensive, as low as $30 and up. What that allows you to do is query the database information, all the information you want to show on the label. You create your own database inside the label making program, and you can print on every labels. So you could use a LaserJet printer to print those out. So if you have lots of different departments that want different styles, you can create different labels, and you just choose your save label template, and the information that populates that just fills in the information up there. So the one on the lower left is just a simple example of a label that was created at a $30 piece of software. And
There's hospital chains that I work for, that's what they give instead of doing labels for them. It's called My Label Designer Pro. It's like $30 you download it, and you just put your queries into it, and they are editable to every user, to whoever has the software.
Mm-hmm. And this is another thing that I've seen Crystal Reports used for, just using a particular font to get the barcode. So there's different creative ways to do it.
And that font is code 128A or 3 of 9, 39. So just a font you could get on the internet for free too.
If you do that, you might have to put the asterisk at the beginning here just for the start name.
Yeah, in the mobile supply chain manual, there's prefixes that go into it for like location. It's like LL or something like that, and so that identifies it as a location label. So if you're scanning locations, it knows that it's a location. If you're scanning items, it knows it's an item. Some common reports that you see out of the box in mobile supply chain. These are the errors that you see when you go to your part counting and you run a report on that. Your requester ID is not valid. They might have might not be set up correctly. So you see that, and it's similar to the authentication failed on user as a password reset. It's when they change their password, but they don't log out of the handheld and log back in. It will let them submit their part count or whatever they're working on, but then it will fail in mobile supply chain.
For those that don't ever log out of the
Right.
Yeah, this is mine.
You never re-upload those, reset it. It's got to be recounted.
they gotta
sent
redo
in.
them all over again.
And then the unit cost error is something you see primarily in the beginning of implementations. When you come up with mobile supply chain and Lawson, unit cost is missing. So just a unit cost is required. It'll be a violation. That's when that item drops off in an unreleased RQ10, which causes some frustration for the people that are ordering it because it looks like it goes through, but if no one's checking up behind them on the back end, those requisitions often kind of get forgotten about if they're not looking for unreleased recs.
Well, then they call the help desk and they tell the help desk, our pick lists aren't printing.
Right.
No, because you didn't go look at your upload error.
Right, but someone that's not actively going into the mobile supply chain portal, to them it looks like it went through and everything's good. But
That's why they have
yeah.
supervisors.
Right.
This is a sensitive subject, huh?
It's just so, we all
Yeah,
feel these
it's
pains
painful.
that do it, and you can't, Dave and I, have the pager, and I think last time, I'm done. I'm done dealing with being nice. I feel sorry for the person who it's happening to that was never trained that that's what happens. So I help that person, but what I end up doing is I give them their supervisor's name at 2:00 in the morning. Because you know what? You didn't train them. And you know, you didn't get to the point and the base of it. So much of this, it's not explained by Lawson. Oh, surprise. So, but it's also good stuff to have. I mean, it's awesome to know this.
I think the challenge with upload errors, this is what I think we find, is they don't happen a lot. The problem is when they don't happen a lot and you have users that aren't real savvy and they're not used to going into mobile, it's a challenge to deal with something that happens once every 3, 4, 5 months.
Yes.
If you deal with a problem once, twice every week, oh yeah, you're pretty savvy, you know what to do. That's the challenge, I think. That's the challenge.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you try to reduce the amount of upload errors, and I think we've been pretty good with that. One that does happen, and I don't know, maybe this is a question I have for you guys, maybe you know, we find that when we have an inventory tracked item that goes down to 0 stock on hand, 0 allocatable, but yet it's a zero cost, it's a legitimate 0 cost item, we get that stupid unit cost required. That's our most common upload error, you know, and I don't understand why that happens, but it's when we get down, again, it's a 0 cost item that goes down to 0 allocatable.
There's a patch for that.
There's a patch for that?
You have to upgrade. Because, no, well, he just was saying to me earlier. That
No, but we've had that for a while. That's been a while.
I know.
It was recently fixed?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
both on the par.
It's a big deal, yes,
agreement.
exactly what you're talking about.
Okay, all right. Well, hopefully our next mobile upgrade.
We're on 10.1.6.4.
Are you using the no charge flag?
Yeah.
And that's still happening?
There's no charge.
And the PARs actually set up as no charge too? Because I'm pretty sure there's a flag for that.
Know that.
Yeah.
It pulls from the contract.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but you know what you have to do? We just had this. Also, the no charge item, we had to go to the IC12 and put no charge there because we used to put a penny.
Yeah.
And that always faked the system out. But if you put now an N, I don't know who told us that
You
wasn't
put
us.
it in on the IC12, plus there's a no charge flag on your IC81. There's more button IC81, that's it.
So that'd be something that you could put an audit report out for.
To other places, even though the contract says this is a no charge contract.
Yeah, because it's not, because that's where you, like the unit cost when you first go on, all it's a unit cost required for an item that's never been in your inventory, especially for inventory items, because it's looking for a price out of your item note table. It doesn't go to, if it's an inventory item, it doesn't go to contracts.
We need another audit period for that.
It only looks at your contracts when you go to replenish that goods in the storeroom and sees that as costs.
Yep.
Also seen audits on like patient charge. There's a patient charge yes on IC12. So going off of the user field where you may store the charge number or your GL category may say chargeable. So using a customized audit process to kind of catch those and make sure they're flagged the right way. Because exactly, the materials person doesn't necessarily know, so you kind of have to watch out for them and just update it.
It's primarily all your like data orders.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know why they just don't charge that then. Yeah.
Hopefully that's it.
That's true.
So one of the out-of-the-box reports with most supply chain is under the global reporting. It's in PAR counts. The productivity report. You need to have the Crystal Reports application server set up and matched up in your most supply chain configuration file, so it knows to look at this. If you don't have that set up, you'll get that global error reporting is not set up or is invalid. So you need to have that set up in order for it to work these productivity reports. And this allows you to select a user, a group of users, to see, you know, how many PARs they're counting in a day, how many units they're counting, the time it takes for them to count a specific PAR. And it's just good to check up to see, you know, if it's taking someone to, you know, 20 minutes count a.
Do you know what version that report was fixed in?
I believe it's out there from a while, from version 9, but.
Let me rephrase that. The one that reports the subunits, the lines, is wrong for the longest time. If you count 143 PARs, the subunits is 143 instead of all the lines.
Okay.
Huh.
Do you know what version they fixed that in? No.
No.
So yeah, best practice recommendations. I find one of the biggest ones is just defining roles and responsibilities. So who's going to maintain this information? What part of this information are they the ones maintaining? How often does it need to happen? Those types of questions to rule out between your two teams. Do you have any custom reports that they can run? And you know, how do you share the information back and forth? And really just having a good auditing process, because again, you know, the person who's adding these items to the PAR may not understand all the implications and know where to look in the system to make sure that they set it up the right way. And usually the areas that are directly suffering from that are the purchasing departments, once it's generated into a purchase order, and also the item master team, just to make sure things are flagged the right way. Leveraging those ICO3 groups, and really just taking the thinking out of PAR optimization by creating these custom reports, or even just sharing information with your materials team on what other Lawson reports are available for them to utilize, like the RQ260, see how often it's ordered. You know, using any kind of receipts information. You may not give them direct access to it, but letting them know that it's out there and available for them if they wanted to request the report, so they can do some optimization on their sides. Anything to add? Any more? Questions? General complaints? Let's hear it.
I have many. Okay, so we upgraded to 10, and my issues are with the IC12 and the IC81 PAR locations. Okay, so when you add an item to a PAR, it automatically builds an IC12 record. However, you can't maintain that IC12 record. You have to go to the IC81 record. And to do it, and all you're doing is just changing the line. So in order to change your IC81 records, we had to build queries and figure out what line, the sequence. It doesn't go by your item number. You have to figure out what sequence that item is on your PAR.
IC82.
Right. Well, okay.
Use your IC82. Yeah, use your
Correct.
line number.
But if you're doing a mass change, how are you doing a mass change on IC82?
Well, you can also, and I don't know what version of 10 up came out in, but you know, they have that position to item number now in IC81.
Yep.
And you can key off that spreadsheet, you can key that line, that item number to that PT.
It doesn't work.
No.
It'll change the first item on your car cart if you query it back by the item number on the
Correct.
search studio.
Right. It doesn't work.
You know the sequence number.
Yeah.
You need to know your
Position
sequence
to
number.
item.
Position to item won't
No.
take you to that item to change that line. It does the first item on the car cart.
Right.
And that's it.
When you're
That's
doing
only
it, when
crazy.
you're doing your upload.
It
Right.
doesn't work the way it's designed.
Well, I mean, if you're building a upload,
Dude,
if you're building an upload, you could extract that data and pull the sequence number out of the,
correct. But you should be able to change. I mean, prior to upgrading, we were able to change your IC12, all your IC12 records, which include the IC81 PAR record, IC12 record, and it would change the manufacturing information on your IC81. It doesn't do that anymore. Manufacturing information is being pulled from your IC11 field. So every time you make a change, you got to go through and change.
Before that, it was when you would add an item to a PAR originally, it copied,
It pulls in the
IC11
IC11.
did it for the PARs as well.
I found the only way around that was to do a generic change on the header and then update the information behind it. That was.
Yeah, that was their solution when we called Infor. You gotta hit the change on every line.
Every line now.
Yeah.
And that happened since 10, right? That was right when we went to 10.
Yes, so when you
I
got,
mean, you shouldn't, if you can't get to that manufacturer product code on the IC81, then it shouldn't even have a correlation back on the IC12 where it could be mismatched. Because you can't change it anywhere. You can't manage it anywhere. So why even have it there? It should just be blank.
I agree,
Absolutely.
you can't change your
I
things.
agree.
Have other people who are on 10 been bringing these, I mean, from what you've seen, have other people who are on 10 been bringing these issues up or no, or?
That's the first I've heard of the position too, but not, there's a lot of people just starting 10 now.
I just thought I couldn't figure out how to do it, because it never worked for me.
Yeah. See, I thought, at least the last version I was working with, the manufacturer information stopped populating on cars. It was just a temporary time where it wrote it.
But we talked to them and somebody put an enhancement in because they were pulling that information for whatever reason from the IC12 record. And it's like, okay, well, then add the field IC81 or something so you can manage it, but.
Now most people would vote no. Yeah, so one person got that back.
So all you have to do is hit change on each line, you can change it, but it's very time consuming.
Yeah,
Did you
if
say
you've
you
got
would change
one
the header,
item.
and the header then would change all the lines?
And
We gotta
in
go in
my
IC
experience,
too.
Yeah, we did just a upload. We just took all of the par headers and then just did a change. You weren't changing anything, it just refreshed the data.
But if you're changing one item and it's on 300 pars,
Yeah, you'd have to go.
you have to go in
300
IC82, see 5 at a time,
Right.
I would do an upload.
and put a C in front of all of them.
Yeah.
It's just,
Have you ever tried just do a minor change on the IC, using an IC 331?
we're not allowed 300 screens.
Well, but they really should.
That's just your mass change. If you have one item replacing, it just, you do all your pars at one big swoop and fix them.
And what was that, IC3?
31.
IC31?
IC
331.
331.
And what does that do?
It's a par cart mass change.
What do you put on there though? Are you
You
putting
have
on
to
the-
There's different
See if it has
parameters.
the
You
main-
can change parameters. You can change quantities, you can change sourcing.
You can do things like every place you find item A, put item B, or replace item A with item B. That has to work. You have to have the same stock in
Use
another.
331, you guys use that?
And you have the option to run it in report mode first to see what changes will take place.
Yeah. There's also.
Why waste
There's also IC 330 that's used for inventory changes, similar things like sourcing.
You don't have.
And PO 115 is the template mass change.
What was that?
PO 115?
Yeah.
Stuff you're not supposed to.
Template.
Yeah, template mass
What
change.
about these IC 300? What else is out there that seems like there's some gems out there that we're not using? 330, 331, what else?
PO 115, that's for procurement templates. That's a mass change for templates.
What's the number?
PO 115.
Oh, I thought we used that.
I thought we had that
I
one.
think we used
Well,
that.
that's a 1.
That's a 1,
Yeah,
yeah.
because it's 100 series.
Yeah, it also.
We had
Drop
only
the ball.
counted.
Yeah, we.
They don't give us 300s, they don't give us 500s, they
Yeah,
don't give us
we don't have,
800s.
yeah, we don't have any 300
Those are
series
bad.
jobs, so, yeah.
Yeah, you have to be careful with who has them. Those mass change or have security to say which report groups they can run them for.
We like paint. Those are good.
Okay, now I also heard with the upgrade to 11, this could be a rumor, I did hear that you can pick whether you want your changes to be made from IC81 or your IC12 record. Is that true? You don't know?
We don't know.
From what screen?
It could be true today and then 3 months, no.
I was used to working with IC12, so if I change all the IC12s, it would update all the IC81, so I wouldn't even have to bother touching the 81. Or if you don't use IC12 records and you only use IC81, then you can pick the IC81. That's what I heard. I
So it
didn't.
changes no matter what.
Right.
It changes both screens no matter which one you pick.
Well, I think it's either or. You can pick either or.
Has anybody had problems
when they're in IC82, and for instance, they're trying to change a vendor number, and your add-in says change complete, but it actually does not change it. We ran into that yesterday, and I beat my head probably for a half an hour, and then I just said, forget it, I'll do it manually.
Did you have the hidden key?
The what?
The hidden key? There's a hidden key that you need for most par line updates.
I haven't had a problem until
That's funny. It could have been a patch, or I'm not sure. If you do Control-Shift-V when you're in a screen, there's a couple different fields, and I think it's like a required collection or something like that, and it lets you know what's required as part of the upload. And I believe the hidden key for PARs is like the company number and location concatenated, something like that.
Okay.
So Control-Shift-V gives you more background information about the form
So
itself.
that'll tell me what fields have to be there and how to do it.
Yes. Yeah, it shouldn't tell you line changed if it.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
But you just said you used IC82. Well, I can't get ICE to make upload changes on IC82. I go right to 81.
See, I never have a problem until yesterday.
Yeah, I probably need to.
They've been doing patches and changes.
I was
so-
gonna say, did you have any kind of patches or what?
I don't, all I know is I came in the other day and it said, upload and updates to your system. Would you like to accept? Well, do I have a choice? So, of course, yes. So it could have been that, and they never communicated that they changed anything.
Yeah.
Anything's possible because we're in the middle of going to 10. So.
Huh. But I mean, normally for us, if there's a new maintenance service pack or some kind of patch, normally, there's a testing process and everything. I don't. Well, okay. No, I hear you.
You don't test them?
We're testing, but like they're doing.
I was gonna say, you just put them like in, heck, you could ruin your whole system.
No, they're testing. It's just what gets communicated out isn't always communicated, which nobody has that issue.
Yeah.
I put also patches in fix EDI and matching for.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We could spend 2 hours on this discussion. Which really gets everyone hot. You wanna see? And the other big topic has always been enhancements. Where's, oh my gosh, WellSpan. WellSpan.
No, but.
VAR.
Yeah.
Oh my VAR, you start enhancements and I put them things in there back in 1976.
Yeah, you get.
Oh, and you would get hot. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Do you know if there is a way to query on, or pull the information out of, the comments section on the IC11?
Yes, it is a L table. I believe you cannot do it with MS add-ins. You have to do it with like a report writer. It's like LHP CR or something like that. I probably have it. If you grab my card and send me an email, I can find it for you. Yeah, those are huge.
And there's multiple
Yeah.
L's to pick from.
Can you do an add-in? You said you can't do an add-in, a mass dump in there, or?
It's not a selection for a table that you can.
Okay, so you can just query on it, you can't do an add-in.
Correct. Yep, you could.
Really?
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, you could do probably a SQL statement to write information there if you wanted to, if you worked with IT.
Yeah, I use Microsoft Access and write a query for that. You can pull the L table in that.
Yeah, we can pull it in. Well, we were wondering if we could do a mass dump of information too. We're looking at inactivating a bunch of parts, a bunch of Lawson numbers that are inactive. We haven't purchased them in a long time, and we wanted to put a note in that field stating that it was a mass change, so they're not thinking, somebody doesn't look at it and think that it was discontinued or something like that.
Yeah, and now that I'm thinking of it, Infor offers, it's like
use at your own risk type of thing, self-contained workbooks. And there's one for attachments, which should be considered a comment for the item images. Again, if you give me your card or take mine and send me an email, I can send you some documents on that. But there's a whole bunch of them. You can download them through like the technology area, third-party tools. And there's a bunch of them that you can use out there, and they utilize MS add-ins, but not the same way. So
I bet you they're limited. I bet you tell you one IT won't give it
It depends on what level you're at, because the database fields change. They haven't updated them in, I don't know, how many
Yeah.
years.
And it depends on what the skill set is at your organization. You can create your own using the same language that I think was Don Peterson who created them. So
Yeah.
they're pretty cool if you have time to invest in them.
I was just gonna comment on the comments for the inactivations. Now that we're on 10 and we have the third description field, that you can't use add-ins for your comments. I've been putting it on the third description.
Oh, the third
Like if
description.
it, right,
Okay.
DC by manufacturer, inactivated, things of
Because you have
that's what I'm doing.
355 characters now.
Pardon?
It's like 355
Yeah,
characters.
yes.
Okay, and that's good.
But you don't even have to put I still put a little bit of a comment in there,
Yeah,
like who
But
told
you
you
don't have
to
to
do
that's
it.
more
drill into it or
visible though,
click
too.
3
Yeah.
times.
Right, when you're doing a mass.
Sorry guys,
Battery
I'm
ran
gonna
out
take
or
a
something.
little TV timeout here for Mr. Kwasnik and Ms. Kowal. We have to step out real quick, maybe we'll get them back in about 30 minutes, and I can give you more time. Sorry about that. Trying to
Thank you, everyone.
Lots of other
Thank you.
demands.
Thank you.
We can stand here and look pretty.
I was gonna say, they're leaving you stuck here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They can back up that.
I know enough to be dangerous.
What would the best process flow be if you are trying to make a change on a template and also on a par with a unit of measure? So you're going from box to case, for instance, and what we ran into yesterday, and maybe we're just not doing it correctly, is we have to add the new unit of measure into IC11.
Yeah.
Then we have to add it or change it on the template.
Yeah.
And then we have to change it on the par, and it's a lot of timing. And if
Yeah.
there's quantities that are on order, we have to have
We
them
just did a bunch
back.
of those for a client that had a new file implemented.
I mean, basically, is there an easier way, or are we really doing it correctly? Okay, I didn't want that as an answer.
With items on,
It's a great way.
yeah, with items on order, unfortunately, we have to do scope for transactions for that. But you can still use those same two screens, the PO 115 and the IC 331, to make those mass changes. But again, with if there's open transactions, you're going to run into some problems with that.
So basically, we just need to open up IC11, PO13, IC81s to our inventory and buyers, and MMIS just needs to get out of the hole.
No, they're gonna make you more problems.
Yeah, I know, I'm not being serious. It's a pipe dream, right?
Yeah.
I think Debbie just got on.
Hey, she can do whatever she wants. It's her system.
I believe in one of the releases of version 10, one of the later ones, they do have a flag that you could change. It's not really recommended, but it's available to allow unit of measure changes and updates with open transactions. So it allows the other ones to flow through, the old ones to flow through, and then once it's all of them flowed through, and those updates take place.
Sometimes
It's
are in there.
yeah. It's clearly stated in the documentation that it's not recommended, but it's possible, so it could be dangerous.
Yeah. I think that's the field, isn't that the flag we used when, because of Epic or Omni or whatever system, we had to change stock unit of measures on some of our perpetual inventory. For example, we bought Band-Aids in a box of 100, and they had to go to each's because that's the lowest patient use unit of measure for Epic or whatever. But anyhow, we had trouble like changing it. We would get all the on-order quantity out, all the inventory balances, but then we couldn't make the change because it said open transactions exist. And it turns out, I think it was open for invoicing, I think, because there were no on-order quantities, so we had to flip that flag temporarily. Once we flipped that flag, then we could change the stock unit measure on the IC11. We flipped that flag back to not allow changes as soon as we were done with that, but we had to utilize that flag under those circumstances.
Yeah, it was very controlled.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a controlled change, and we flip it right back, but that's the flag we had to use.
So let me take it a step further with my other question then. Does everybody have their item masters broken down to the lowest transactable unit of measure, and do they find that makes the changes easier for templates?
Dan will explain what that is.
I'm sorry?
Dan will explain what that is.
For our perpetual inventory items, not all of them, but a good number of them, we had to change the stock unit of measure from, again, let's say a box or a case or whatever, down to the each to, accommodate Epic, Omni, some other systems we were using that required the lowest patient use unit of measure. So.
But the storeroom still wanted to give them out in that box.
And they can, I don't care what they give them out as, but for
when they look
calculations
around at their stock, though, their stock on hand
is in each. Yeah. That could be the confusing thing. So in other words, potentially Band-Aids, a box of Band-Aids, your normal run-of-the-mill Band-Aids, box of 100. If we drill around and look at our inventory balances, it'll say, 12,000 eaches, which really means 120 boxes. Now, the box is the default transact unit of measure, the primary transact unit of measure. So yes, if they go to do an issue or on all the pars, it's distributed by box. But for the purposes of looking and for the purposes of cycle counting, and this got them the first inventory that they did right after they made this change, everything's going to be in the eaches. So
it's more of a training issue at that point in communication. I mean, it can be done and it should be done.
Well, whether it should, that's but that's where they're lacking, because it wasn't my decision, but I thought the change was not good from a supply chain perspective.
Do you know what's driving it? I mean, so we've seen that on a couple occasions from source data where it's getting transacted at that level, like each cotton ball or something.
Ours
It seems like
being
completely
pushed
useless.
from
Like what?
Yeah.
It requires documentation
For each Band-Aid?
for the patient use
Unit of measure.
Yeah.
So one Band-Aid is a patient
Patient
use
doesn't
unit of
use the whole
measure.
box of Band-Aids.
They get a whole bank of box.
That was my reaction.
Yeah.
Worse, but yeah.
And that's the extreme. Like, we joke about the Band-Aids, but it came down to then you had to, what do people call a pack of gauze?
Right.
Oh,
my God,
yeah,
we
that was
changed
fun.
gauzes 3-4
Yeah,
times
yeah.
because everybody's like, no, this is the pack. No, that pack's in a box. That's the pack. And this pack, no, it's a pack of 2 within a pack. So we're talking about the pack of 2, and no, we're talking about the pack of 2 5-packs. Oh
We're
my
bouncing
goodness.
it around, and the reason we're asking is because we're going to be bringing one Epic, where they're already there. But they're pretty much forcing us to break down that unit of measure, and they're looking at Clinical Bridge as well for the two-way interface. And right now, we have a workaround with an external unit of measure table for our OR SurgeonNet items to break the unit of measure down and do the calculations. But what we're running into is, what do you do with the gulls? What do you do with your uses? What do you do with your centimeters? So we're trying to get an idea.
It was just patient billable items that had to be down because you had to charge for a true.
We're actually talking
Now
about
you got
everything.
clinical documentation, and clinical documentation needs everything.
That's what we're finding.
So whatever's on a DPC card or whatever they call them now in Epic has to be at the lowest patient use unit.
And we're actually talking about breaking all, if we're gonna do it, we're just breaking all, whether they're patient chargeable or not, that way we have that consistency.
You're probably better off. And for the most part, you're okay everywhere except the warehouse if they choose to give it out in a different primary unit measure.
Okay.
They're gonna have the biggest learning curve.
I
At
think
least that's
they
what we
actually
found.
put a different type label in our warehouse, so they know that this is different than.
We got pictures, color coded, and you get a rookie in there and they still screw it up.
So can I ask a question kind of related to the inventory
inventory piece and the cycle counting, because you talked about that's kind of the pain point when you're breaking it down so that each document is separate.
Until they get used to it, yeah.
So are they literally counting, if they've got an open box with Band-Aids, are they literally counting then like the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
They would have to, yeah.
Well, if they would have an open box, yes. Functionally, I think in reality, you know, one box, they'll count the boxes, they have 10 boxes, 10 times 100 is 1,000. Someone just has to do the math. I mean, you can adapt to it. They can adapt to it, it's just not an ideal.
Physical count. I mean, if you're missing 3 Band-Aids at 1/100th of a penny.
I'm thinking more like the pieces of 144, where it's not like round numbers, so the math might be in their head, like, you know, are they literally like, do they have a little calculator where they're typing in the numbers or?
Again, they just deal with it. Unfortunately, you just have to adapt to it. And this is my annoyance with it from a supply chain perspective. It lends itself to confusion, but obviously other systems are dictating the requirements, so we have to
Well,
do it.
we never did blind counting. So if they saw 400 there and they got 30, they would know something's wrong. This past year, we chose to do blind counting. So they're going, and again, they're used to giving it out as a box, so they're saying there's 4 boxes there. Well, somebody goes to do the entry without double checking that, they just put in 4 eaches instead of the 400
Yeah, that's
eaches.
true. It was the combination, I think, of the blind counting and they didn't do the blind counting the first year we did this conversion, or no? I can't remember.
I thought Rob said last year was the first year
Yeah.
they did blind counting.
Okay, yeah. So.
And this year's coming up.
Yeah.
It's just something to watch for.
Any other questions for, I actually have a couple, but anybody else have any other questions for RPI?
Yeah, the only question I had is, do we get a copy of the presentation?
Absolutely, so we plan to give them to Jeremy, he said he would distribute them. So.
I was gonna ask the same thing, but I figured you guys would probably give it to Jeremy.
Yes,
and then,
whoever.
Yeah, and then it'll be on the website.
And, you know, some of these presentations, they're not as bullet-centric, but we tend to record them on webinars. You can find them on YouTube if you just go to RPI Consultants. This one hasn't been done on YouTube, but it will be probably in 3 weeks. And the contract management has. So, you know, if you're looking for them and you want the audio and the questions, they're out there.
Any other? Yeah. I mean, I have a couple other questions, mainly mobile stuff. But anybody else have any other questions for RPI?
What do you do, and this is kind of going through for contract management, what is best practice when it comes to like purchase from locations on the BPAs if you have multiple vendors and multiple purchase from? So for instance, we have Cardinal Value Link, Cardinal Base, and we also have 2 or 3 purchase froms, so think J&J.
Yeah.
We have multiple purchase froms for one vendor. What's the best practice when it comes to stuff like that? And because right now we're utilizing our IC12s to kind of be the dictator of where it should be pulling. But if an item isn't set up on an IC12, then where's the hierarchy going?
It's a great question, and when you get called, Kwasnik will make sure.
Okay.
And do we set up PO vendors with purchase from? Would it pull from there? How do we have that? I know we utilize the IC12, but do we also have a PO vendor has that purchase from?
But do you have every item set up for every IC12 to every vendor?
Yes.
Yeah.
And you maintain all that?
Yes.
Yes, she does.
Every vendor?
She's like, yeah.
And
every item for every vendor?
No.
For everything we purchase.
Yes, for
Yeah.
everything.
Well,
Yes.
yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, not there.
So you do that as well, Claude?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Oh, okay.
You're
You're
mine.
Okay.
We do that too. We have,
And
a-
you do
we
that.
have a nice 12 for every item.
Yeah, we do too.
You're 25.
Location. Because that would eliminate any errors that, because what we're seeing is our buyers are missing, putting the code in
Right.
on PO 20, and then it's pulling from PO instead of GH, which is what our
We try to
codes
make it
are.
as consistent as possible for everything, so it's too confusing. You know, we build everything down to the lowest unit measure, we do all the screens for everything. Because it's too confusing to say, well, in this situation, do this. in this
Yeah.
situation, do that.
And do you get any pushback from your IT department that that's taking up too much space? Or is bogging the systems down?
We were told when we went to 10, we had unlimited space, didn't we?
It is what it is.
No more
I need
archiving.
it in order to run my operation, so I don't wear
We just went through a huge archive. I mean, I think that's a couple months, I'm not sure.
Did you say you archived your time?
I know we
They
did, we
did.
went through a huge archive.
We need to.
But we didn't archive any item
Utilize
master information,
purchase
I don't even
from-
know if you can.
No, it's just transactional.
Yeah.
Just inactivate.
If we can do that. We're still looking at that because we were talking about not using the IC-12, but I'm not sure where that's gonna go.
So
We have too many products and there's too many variations, so I don't know if it's something we can.
So basically, everybody here uses IC12s and they set up every item that they purchase with an IC12 to every single vendor.
We originally had it on the
No,
contract
not to
though.
every single vendor.
Yeah, I
that's
think
what I'm-
maybe they need some clarification what's
Okay.
going on. I mean, from our perspective, as far as purchase froms, we only utilize them if, a vendor needs a separate special fax number to go to or something like that, like a separate division, And when we say that we set up the item for every IC12, that would be if that location utilizes the item, and we only have IC12 set up for certain locations, our perpetual inventory, of course, and then certain special areas like cath lab, peri-op, granted an increasing number of areas, but nonetheless still limited to peri-op, cath lab, radiology, not every single department in the hospital.
Right.
But
So-
we have, our warehouse location is called SDS. We have SDS records for every item in the network. The ones that are flagged inventory tracked are the true warehouse items.
Inventory track, yes, yeah.
The ones that are flagged not inventory tracked are all the non-stocks that all the other RQC users could order.
So basically, what I'm getting at is, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as my number. I have 2 purchase from locations, so I have to set it up for both of those purchase from locations to 5 different vendors that we purchased.
We set it up for one vendor per location. So we have 8 locations that we use. So if
When you say
buy-
locations, just define, I think it's important to define what form number.
We use, when we say locations.
Because I think we're talking different, you
The
gotta
eight
get on the same language
yeah,
here, when we
yeah.
say
The
locations.
8 locations that we have are our receiving ducts. They are non-stop locations.
Okay,
Okay, so they're the receiving duct, that's where it comes in. It doesn't include any outliers.
defined in IC02, right, I think?
Yes.
Okay, all right,
Yes.
okay.
So if we buy an item, say we buy an item, it's a J&J item from Owens & Minor. We buy it from them, and we can buy that and get a good price for 4 locations. So we'll set it up for Owens & Minor. Now, 4 other locations might want to buy it direct.
Yes, this is what
So
I'm.
then those other 4 locations, we would turn and build, for those locations, we would build it for J&J Direct.
That's what I'm
And
getting
we don't do it very often. It's not a common practice. It's usually if we get it here, this is where we're buying it from.
Yeah. It's it's the way the
It's
contract
the
was
contract,
negotiated and written up.
Exactly. It's only special circumstances when we buy it from.
And then it's not necessarily purchased from.
We don't buy from a bunch of different vendors unless that's the 2, and then we switch it. Yeah.
Think of that scenario, they're doing, buying a new facility. They have a previous contract there
Yeah.
for a short period of time.
We run into that, we run into that.
Grandfather
Yeah.
out. So you may have to build it multiple times.
Because what we're doing is we're setting up that Lawson number, and we have our two main purchase froms. But then we also have, sorry, I gotta look, too much visual person. So I have 3 different main storerooms that we set up. And then within those, under the replenishment, I have the vendor and I have our 2, main purchase froms. But then I would also have to set up the actual off-site ship tubes if they're going to different vendors.
We don't do that for our off-site. When they place an order through our RPI, their, correct me if I'm wrong, their ICO2 record automatically pulls in, right? When they do
the clinic.
Yeah, the clinics. If nothing is in there and nothing is billed, no purchase from will show up. It'll come right on the PO20.
Right, and then what ends up happening is if it was supposed to be Gettysburg and we don't put anything in there and we don't have the IC12 set up, it defaults to our York location.
I just had that one happen. Yeah.
So basically you're saying we really do need to have all of our items set up for those IC12.
You could set up a separate contract,
Okay.
because you can put the purchase from on the contract.
Well, we talked about that as
Let's get the date.
and having basically it's probably easier to copy the VPA over with the 3 different purchase froms than to manage all these IC12.
So you gotta remember your hierarchy in PO 25.
Right.
Because if they're all the same price, it's gonna hit the first one and that's gonna be it.
So when
There's
you look at
nothing to drive the purchase from unless you put in that IC12 that says purchase it from here for this location.
I see what you're saying.
That's not how it works with us. Like with our outliers, the clinics that don't have a PO12 built for their areas, we have a special purchase from built for Owens and Minor that we do have on the BPA. We have 2 of them. One we call for clinics, one we call for non-clinic for a hospital. The outliers, when they order from the clinic, the clinic orders, it pulls in that special purchase from. When the hospital orders, they do have a IC12 built for the hospital location. They'll pull in the other one. So I don't know.
Is that your PO 10.2 record though, your PO vendor record that you're building the purchase from on?
No, it's on the PO25.
Okay.
It's 2 separate VPAs.
Yeah.
So we have a purchase from for Q letter for 472, and then we have 472 clinic Owens and Minor broken down by the lower unit of measure. That's where it's pulling in the purchase from.
And they're both the same vendor number, both contracts
So
are the
it's
same
both
vendor.
the same, 2 different
Yes, they're both the
VPAs.
same vendor number. Different purchase froms, different BPAs.
Okay. I would try different setups and see
what works best.
Yeah, try just a couple different testing scenarios. And again, it depends on the volume, because we try to keep that minimal too.
Right.
Especially because if you've got mergers and acquisitions, you'll go nuts trying to figure out what those purchase prices
Well, and that's why we tried to rule out IC12 as the maintenance and put it on the PO25s and have the certain separate purchase froms, the 3 different purchase from
Tell them they all
codes.
have to buy it from the same place.
I'd love to do that. And look at me like I had 10 eyes, so.
Just think of the standardizations. Tell them you're saving money by making the whole network do one contract.
how much of your items are like that? Because that's, I don't know, I kind of find that, I mean, I don't think that would never happened with us.
That would be like.
I don't want to say never, but.
Cedar Crest buys from Owens and Minor because they're close, but Muhlenberg
Yeah.
buys directly from Johnson.
And in your case, you said it's still an exception. It's obviously not.
Yeah, that's the only one, I think, that's.
Because they're buying typically a lower unit of the measure at the clinic.
Yeah. I mean, so how often, I'm just curious, I'm asking, how often do you
It
think that
happens
happens?
more frequently than we want it to, but maybe it is one of those things that as the PO failure report comes through, we just set those up and manage it by exception. I hate managing stuff by exception because it just creates more work for everybody, so.
Because we, like I said, we used to have ours on the contract and we ended up with PO failures and we were like, we'll just, it's one contract, here's the vendor contract, and then whoever needs to purchase it from this area, the IC12 drove it. So.
We either have incorrect purchase from codes or missing purchase from codes. And it ranges from about 30 to 40 POs a month. Wow. I used to track all that when I was doing all the checks. So.
Well, when we implemented Lawson 2 years ago, in Lawson version 10, you don't have to have IC12 records for your non-stop.
Right.
So the only IC12 records we have are for inventory items. And now we have a surgery center on campus, and we want their deliveries to go directly to them. We bought them. We want their deliveries to go directly to them, and I'm having the worst time figuring out how to set up the POs and get the orders shipped directly to them. Because the non-stock items don't have IC12 records, and our agreements have a vendor purchase from. So if the surgery center has a different ship-to account number than what the hospital has, where does the vendor purchase from, pull from, to be on the PO?
Pulls on PO for me. As long
So
as
the buyer would have to manually put it in there?
Yeah. As long as it's in there, if not, and that's what we're running into, if it's not on that PO 20, then it's gonna pull from your IC 12.
You don't have.
Which you don't have. We have it for some items and for some of our purchase from codes and vendors, but not all. So we're running into the same problem you're running into.
But if you're just doing it just for your OR, you could build whatever name you want to, so it's designated as just the OR and build all their items as an IC12. And then you get that by default as they purchase, as they ship to it, the purchaser.
What's that for? PO 25 record has a different purchase from, PO 25.
But the IC12 would override whatever's on the PO 25.
Right.
I don't know, even I've had cases open with Infor, they can't help me, I feel like I'm speaking a different language because nobody understands what I'm trying to ask.
Kowal wants in on the IC12 nonstop conversation.
Because you don't need
Oh,
IC,
you're missing all the
you don't need
fun.
you don't need for an item that is your contract and your PO 13.
Oh, yeah.
What the IC12 gives you is a bunch of other defaults that makes the
But where's the
data
purchase
flow.
from, where's the vendor purchase from before? Or OR buys it and the surgery center buys it, but they have different ship to account numbers with the vendor. So just the buyer putting it on the PO 20 themselves?
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
I got all kinds of different answers.
Build
I got
IC12s.
build separate PO 100 jobs, I got, don't just get the whole thing and do IC 81s.
Because the farther down you go, it overrides.
No, I can, but it still wasn't working. Because now in 10, in version 10, there's this ship to location field, it's a single document to a PO field. And that's like on 5 different screens and they interact with each other, they cancel each other out. I've tested it so many ways.
That single document to a PO is extremely confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
PO 10, RQ01.
We just had, we wanted to switch one of our vendors because a lot of times we'll have the same item on multiple recs. We wanted to get them on the one PO and I had to flip the whole, it was confusing. Yeah, I was very confused. I finally got it to work, but I had to find the right combination of flags. Yeah, it's very, very confusing. But anyhow, sorry. I broke up the IC12 conversation here.
So yeah, if it's a car, then if it's
it's sourcing from a vendor and you have the vendor and the purchase from there, it would then use the header on the power location as they ship to, right? Essentially how it's supposed to work, and I came in late, the conversations.
Yeah,
I don't know that she has a par set
No,
up.
we don't have any, we're very small, we don't have any, but that's what Infor told me to do to resolve this problem.
Yeah, because
Build
the
par
further
location.
down you go, the last setup you have is really what overrides all the ones above it. So if you only have it on the PO25, your only other options are to set up IC12s or to set up an IC81.
I guess, I mean, I don't want to speak for everybody here, but I think some of the major challenges are most organizations, it seems, including ours, are finding an increasing need to build IC12s for more IC02 locations. And of course, that adds a layer of complexity to the database maintenance. And I think in one case, you could explain your problem better, but it gets even a little more complicated because she has some locations that apparently want to buy from some vendors with certain purchase froms, and then other locations want to buy from maybe a different vendor with a different purchase from.
That's a good
So,
summation.
you know, it's so, and in some cases, maybe people don't have IC12s, which makes database maintenance simple, but on the other hand, it kind of removes some of the robustness of, or potential that they could.
And how do you do your inventory if you don't have IC12 records?
We have them only for inventory items.
Oh, you don't do non-stop inventory on non-stop?
Yes, we do.
Could you,
We have to run and.
could you utilize, like separate vendor agreements with the participants by location, and then it would source that way?
Different, they would be a different PO agreements. with
So,
the
like, if you have one item and it could source from 3 different vendors, and each location has that different vendor, could you just utilize the participants on those agreements to say who sources from whom, instead of?
Isn't that a lot of maintenance, that have price change? We do a lot of manual processes, but they're very small.
No, it wouldn't be, so long as that's the only agreement that they're sourcing from. So they wouldn't be able to utilize the other contracts or agreements unless you added them as a participant as well. And I don't know if there's a priority in the participants, I don't think that there is, it just goes off of the first. So you could trick it to do that instead of building a whole bunch of IC12s. I don't know, something to look into. But you can do participants by just straight company, ship to location, or requesting location. There's probably another one too. So.
One more thing about Lawson with the last upgrade is
And she's referring to 10, because we upgraded to 10, so.
I don't, and this could be, the younger folks that like this, I find it very difficult, it's always clicking down. You gotta, the boxes, and you gotta check, add, change, or delete, where before you could just put an A in there. Is there any, you're doing all this clicking for just making a change, you're done.
The little box pops up.
The little box,
Yeah,
you can't put add, change, or delete, you can't put it in there.
Oh, we can.
You
I
can,
think you can change preferences or
But
something.
we can just type in state 10 in our box.
and how do you do, who did that?
Like that.
Yeah.
Just
And you're on version 10.
Uh-huh.
And it's all screens.
Right?
Yeah.
Just using the function system.
Is that kind of function thing?
Yeah. Some people like it's only drop down now, they can't drag tab.
And you can't backspace
You don't
out
want
things like select.
I know they, are they using?
Yeah.
Are you using Smart? No.
Some are, some aren't.
Yeah.
Users.
So it's
Oh, IT.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be somewhere
I
now.
wouldn't be wrong, that would be the
Because I've seen it.
environment thing, wouldn't it?
There's one place where, I've seen it work, while they go to the hospital next
And then it
weekend,
doesn't,
it's like,
yeah.
what's going on?
Yep.
I think there's.
I don't remember ever seeing it.
It's only,
Yeah.
yeah. It only
Well, you gotta show them, because they don't understand, they're not in it all the time. Or if I only count that on certain forms, unfortunately, forms that you actually do.
So, you're looking around, yeah.
appreciate it.
Can I go back to mobile? I have a question on the upload errors, of course, one of our favorite topics. One of the types of upload errors that you pointed out is the authentication error. Is that with a lot of upload errors, once you correct the source of the problem, you can do a resend in mobile and then it flips to upload complete and it releases the requisition. With the authentication error, I don't think there's any way to resend that, is there? In other words, if they get an authentication error, which I think is typically, or the most common cause is they never sign out of the handheld and they change their password or whatever. Once that happens, there's really no way to resend those counts, is there?
No, because that with password expiring, because the user, it's stuck with a file somewhere in the back iOS or something, so you can like recount and say.
Okay.
See, I thought you could. I thought once our help desk resets our password.
But they reset it back to the password it was prior. You know, if your password expires and you didn't log out and log back in, if you can set it back to what it was when you logged in at the end of it.
Well, they can only set it back to what it was when the old one. So they would set it back to the old one.
Yeah.
And because the new one wouldn't have worked.
Exactly.
So they can set it back to the old one. That's what reset it is. Reset it, and then they go back and you hit resend, and then it sends.
It all depends on how nice your IT security partner is.
I don't know.
I think the way ours is set up, you can't reuse the password. Right. So if you've already, like back in the home office, you've already changed your password, but mobile you didn't sign out, they can't go back and reset it to your old one because it'll say you already used that password.
We can do it.
That could be an IT function, and I don't know. A positive benefit of that is that we tell the users, guess what, you got to rescan everything. At least they have a painful lesson then, for next time. Seriously, at least they learn that, okay, yeah, I'm going to remember next time to log out.
Ours don't.
Although we have had repeat offenders even with that, but still, I think actually when they learn the consequences, but it's unfortunate because all those scans and then.
I think we have, I don't know what you guys do with handhelds. They'll par 50 items and then it just locks on them, literally locks. They're in a wireless area, they put it in the cradle and it just locks on them and they have to, and those they have to do.
All I can say is that used to happen to us more frequently, but when we upgraded both our wireless network and went to newer handhelds, that happened with a lot less frequency. I'm not saying it never happens, and when it does happen, like you said, I think they have to just reboot the whole handheld and they lose. But I think it rarely happens now. I'm not gonna say never, but it rarely happens now.
And I don't know, do you guys teach them, because now you had said they can go in under my pars and click them all and then it downloads them all. What's interesting is that some of them go out and they'll count 5 handheld, or they'll count 5 pars, and they don't hit send after they did a par. So that's taught them the hard way when it locks, and now they didn't, and I'm like, you should never finish a par and not send it.
Yeah, as a matter of practice, we tell our users to send after each par, or at least after every maybe unit. Sometimes a unit's divided into 3 smaller pars, and for the most part, I think they do that. However, in theory, they should be able to do everything and then send all at once, but just in case there's some type of technical problem, that's what we told our users, and as a matter of practice, I think that's what they usually do.
And that whole sign-on thing is difficult too. I feel for them that, you want them to sign out every time they put that handheld down because someone else could go in and do it. With the password authentication, the length of your password, and it has to be a special character, it has to be this, it has to be that, and you have to use that keypad. I feel for them. I understand why they don't want to log out.
Use my keypad?
You can, yeah. There's the little keypad in the lower right corner you use a stylus for, but yeah.
Well, that's not easy.
I know.
I mean, you imagine how many times they're back and forth? I mean, so you know what they do? They just leave it on. And that's not good. And then what happens is, in one area, he's logged on for the whole week. My God, he did everything for 24/7 for 7 days.
3 days straight.
Yeah. And I'm like,
reports look good.
But yeah, it's, but I can see, but they're pharmacy tech people.
Right.
We have our pharmacy techs who want to go into the we have pharmacy up on Lawson. So they go into the perpetual inventory and they issue out their own things. And they don't report to us, so they just tell us who cares.
We have similar problems, yes. But anyhow.
So do you have the whole pharmacy, drugs and all, or is it consumables?
No, drugs.
How's that going?
Oh my gosh, they've been up for a long time.
Right.
I
I've heard
think-
nightmares.
Hmm?
I've heard nightmares.
I think they struggled. I don't know that they still have nightmares about it. I think
I've never
they now par.
done pharmacy drugs and all that.
They now put the drugs and par on a par, and they par drugs.
Do they do small scale replenishment, or do they go through like Cardinal's pharmacy program, order of service, or McKesson?
No, right. IC 140. Is that what you mean by replenishment?
Yeah, if they're doing the IC 140 to a PO.
Yep. And we do 340B.
Oh, really?
For certain.
So what upgrade or version change does Lawson go away from IC 10 or 12 and call it domain? For us newbies who don't know all the shortcuts, you know. Never.
Oh yeah, you're gonna have to, and this is where people were saying locations, and I wanted to clarify what meant by location.
Yeah.
I referred to the form number. Oh, you mean IC02? Yes, because when they say location, it could be an IC02, an RT01, you know, a PO10. Yeah, I
Or
mean.
it's the same with the vendor.
Yeah.
Oh, I have the vendor number. Well, I think vendor number, not vendor item number. I think
Yeah.
vendor number.
Yeah.
So our contract management people are doing that to me all the time. Well, the vendor. I said the vendor what? The vendor number. Oh, okay. Well, it's MV whatever. That's not our vendor number. You know what I mean. Oh. So.
The point is with Lawson, yeah, and I know you're new to Lawson. Unfortunately, form numbers are just, it's something you're gonna have to get familiar with.
Oh, I know, I did hear that they're going away from like 12 or 11 or 12.
I've heard rumor of that too, and I think it's great because I know all the phone numbers now. And,
Yeah.
But being new to Lawson, you know, you can type in what you want in the
Right.
search box.
Yeah. You know that?
Yeah.
I'm learning different things as I.
ICFL, like you can put in the flow, PO charts.
Yeah.
And then you can go cover over them and it will tell you where to be. Or just, what do you want to go to? Purchase order. Keep purchase order and it will.
You can use the, when I say know the form numbers, yes, I mean, and it's literally impossible even for knowledgeable people to know all the form numbers. You can use you can use the search box. You can type a description and use the flow chart. But you're just going to have to become conversant, though, I think, with how the different form numbers are used. If you don't remember the specific form number.
I recommend for you guys, in your presentation, you include like a description besides IC12, for anybody new in the audience.
Put in item location.
Yeah, whatever.
Well, that's a good point.
You know,
Generally speaking, a general rule of thumb, it's like your 00 to like 10 screens are your setup screens, like your 10 and up to 99 are your processes. 100 levels are your update jobs, 200 are your listings and inquiry jobs, 300 are your utilities, and then above that, so you start getting
500 is
like purge,
versions, 800
basis.
Purge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm starting to get a little bit more of that stuff, but it'll be,
And Nelson's not consistent at it.
yeah.
It's a gentleman speech.
So no one handed me any papers or any suggestions for the next meeting.
Yeah,
You
couple.
wanna cancel? Oh, just.
We can run the entire meeting, but what questions we have.
I mean, usually when we have these, we have no problem having, roundtable discussions.
What we've been trying to do though, I think more recently, is either with Infor or with a third-party vendor like RPI.
Could we do it on templates? That's a big one that's coming up for us.
Okay, well, that's an idea. We try to get see what presentations they would have available. In some cases, they had contract management already available, and then in the case of PAR management, they actually kind of customized it and which we appreciate. They kind of did a custom presentation on PAR management. So, we could present, that's an idea, templates for next time. If you do have recommendations, I suppose they could email either Deb, you or myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we want to try to get something on the agenda. I don't know when our deadline is, but, prior to the next meeting.
Well, when is Inforum?
That's July, yeah.
So, in all fairness, I don't know how many, that summer, spring thing from Inforum where they actually give us WebExes to choose from, we did them all.
Yeah.
I've been checking them off, and we have done them all. So, and next time we actually have accounts payable with us.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's time that we probably should circle back around to matching.
Mm-hmm.
The matching function and whatever for AP. I think some of the issues that we have, some of the things we have is, for us that have been to Plug for such a long time, and then new people come, they want to know, well, how do you set up a vendor?
Right.
How do you do these things? And we never go back because, well, we already did.
No, right.
And we're just gonna have to kind of suck it up and go back to some of these topics. And maybe we put on it, something relating to newbies or,
Yeah, and we could possibly do something, you said template maintenance, I'm assuming that's with reference to RQC.
Setup, maintenance,
Yeah,
changes.
we could possibly have a session on RQC, just set up, incorporate templates into it, which is
And you
a
could
big
even
part of it,
save
of
that
course.
for the Christmas one, huh?
So, yeah.
Whatever.
Well, she just gave me how to handle consignment.
That's a good one. That's a good one too. So we can keep you busy, Deb.
So RPI can help us out with that, is what you're saying?
It's an interesting one. It took a while to create that one, not as easy as
I thought it.
Is there a way to lunch, whatever, to get a listing of the members? Is there a way? Contact information. Nah, I'm not getting that.
No, it will cost you.
Now, wait a minute.
$80.
Thomas,
Cards are welcome.
Wow.
Yes.
Or donation, you can basket it at the Christmas party.
Put it in a basket. Put it in a Christmas party, yeah. There you go.
Before we get on that, any other questions for RPI, the RPI folks? Because I have one burning one I really want to ask,
I have a question.
and I think,
I have a question on archived receipts. Is there a way to get them out of archiving so that I can back out a receipt and enter it correctly?
I know what we've been doing, but
Okay, I see that as a paint screen that you use to.
that's what we use. We use PO 99.3. We changed the status on the receiver from archive to released.
Or even ready to archive words, right?
Yeah.
Ready to archive.
And that's in Lawson. develop a paint screen.
Yeah.
You might not even have it installed in yourself on your server.
We used to have it.
And it depends on who you talk to, also, whether they say if you didn't even exist or not.
Now we wait 2 weeks and you have to use all the
PO 99.3.
The Pier 99, there's point 1, 2, and 3, there's different functions.
You want to be very careful using those screens. I asked Brandon them to us reluctantly. Deb just told me they took them away from her. So we use them very, very sparingly. But we have not found any other way when we have an archived receiver to change it.
You know what else? The other thing, most of the time, and I think even Lawson's documentation states that you should never do a quick paint unless you open up an incident. Lawson tells you to do a quick paint and then give you the steps that they want you to take. Because there's a lot of different steps that you may not think that you do.
Why, is there a way then to postpone the archiving? It seems like when they do month end, boom, all my receipts are like locked up. And then lo and behold, we have like net 60 terms, and if we find an issue with an invoice and a receipt, I can't do anything with the
Once the
receipt.
invoice is matched, all of the receipts archived and stuff, you know.
But like the receipt is an archive. So you're saying that the receipts are only archived if there's a match?
It's for whatever they run it for. Do you know what their parameters are when they run that archive? Like we run ours, I close anything that's 9 months and older. So 9 months of stuff stays open. Like I run it every month, but it's
Oh, this isn't 9 months. This is like within 30 days.
Yeah, you need to talk to them and tell them.
And like if
That's
they
too
receive the wrong item.
And maybe he matches it and you're trying to correct it.
Yeah.
It's archived because it's matched, it's not part of a MA 180 archive process, right?
In our case, when we do use that paint screen, the only circumstance is it archives, we have a no charge line on a PO, and it immediately archives, but then they want to unreceive it, receive adjusted out. That's the only time I use that paint screen. I don't use it when it's archived due to a matched invoice.
Yeah.
So.
And that was dictated by finance? Yeah, they told us, because we never used to archive, and they're like, no, you gotta close things 6 months.
See, and I don't.
And then we just changed it to 9 months, because 6 months wasn't enough.
We changed it to 9 months?
How they could have matched.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't even know
Because
that.
I got the invoice with questions. There could have been a match.
gotta do it
So
for
somehow or
10.
the other, our receipts are getting archived without matching.
You should be able to drill around in the audit to see if it was archived, if there's a archived quantity on the line.
Because there's a bucket that says archive quantity.
Yeah.
And that only gets there by running the MA 180.
Yeah. Because it only means it's no charge and received or invoice was matched.
Yeah, but there's,
So this would be a no charge and receive. That's exactly how it got archived, no charge and receive. Because they received the wrong item on the PO, and I was trying to back it out to get the correct one, and I couldn't, it was archived.
Because it was a no charge line. Okay. Then yeah.
Yeah, for the no charge, I think you're safe using the PO 99.3 to change the status of the receiver. That's the only time I use it, and I
If security will give it to you.
yes, of course, you got to have the PO 99 screens,
Because
yes.
there's no audits on those paint screens.
So there has to be, so I have to submit an incident?
no, I mean, this is all, well, you have to make sure first that Pier 99 is installed.
Okay, it doesn't look like we have it.
And then the security administrator gives you security for it.
All right.
So,
Usually, at least when we use those quick paint screens, we do open an incident just to have, because I think the screens do say if you had access to it, like not to use it without Lawson's direction, and then you want to make sure you have the most recent quick paint
this
screen.
is the CYA for Lawson.
Yeah,
Okay, all right, thank you.
depending on how stringent your organization is with security, you might have to jump through some other hoops.
Yeah, IT ends up getting sick of the request, so at some point,
it's
train someone and allow them with,
Yeah, well, what's scary to me is, I think in our organization, IT might take it back, not even our financial system between IT and IS. And I think they may take it back. I can't even imagine them doing a quick thing.
Yeah.
because
I can't imagine.
Because there's some talk now, because it is really a direct edit to the database, that it might go to a DBA.
Yeah. Those things are like taboo.
You just gotta be
A lot. And I need a fix. You know what? Why can't you open up a incident with Lawson and ask them how it's happening within?
What?
And what is the?
Well, they must be, like she said, no charge archive.
Oh, is that
I'm gonna take your.
They must be closing it to like a no charge archive.
I mean, when
That's how it's
there's
gonna
charge, when it's a no charge item, at least receipt it archives.
Yeah, they're receiving it, but it's the wrong item, so then we're not being charged for it. So then when the invoice comes for the right item, I can't back out the wrong one to put the right one in, because it's archived, so. That's, all right, so, good, I have a road to travel here, thank you.
I have to ask this question. If my purchasing department will be not happy with me if I don't ask this question. And I'm wondering if other people are having this problem. A PO 100 has the ability to include or exclude up to 4 vendors. We would absolutely love if you could do more than 4 vendors, either include or exclude. Is there any way, not only directing this at you, but anybody else, is there any way to do that?
Run a step job with multiple PO 100s.
Yeah.
Have one PO 100.
But even that's a problem, because the first PO 100 is gonna, like, let's say you have exclude these 4 vendors, and then you want to exclude this 5th vendor.
Oh,
You
well,
run that first PO
you'd
100,
have to do it.
pick up that 5th.
You'd have to do it and include, you'd have to do it.
Yeah, we just do it as a multi-step include job.
What?
We do a bunch of PO 100s in a multi-step job and include vendors. Up to 4, like if we have 12.
Oh, so you don't exclude though?
No, we include them.
Well, we're looking to exclude more than 4 vendors.
You.
Anyway.
Isn't there a group? A
That's
vendor
what
group?
I was wondering.
I don't
but
think
then,
so on that job. You could create a custom PO 100 job and have someone from IT.
Oh.
There you go. I want you to tell Nancy that, okay? And then she can talk to.
System needs to be
Fast.
vanilla.
That should be a enhancement request. And I know they added bill codes to it in 10, which is great if you're utilizing bill only. There's location attribute, I'm pretty sure you can use, but I don't remember anything.
I thought you could use the group too, but then I found out none of that won't work. So.
What's your attributes?
Well, I don't think the
I think
attributes.
it's just location
I
attribute.
think it's just location attributes. I mean, they used to not have exclude at all, then they added it, which was a beautiful feature, it's great. But now we want more than 4 vendors.
Yeah, is there a?
Because we like to consolidate certain vendors at the end of the day, you know, like, and now it's getting to be more and more and more of them. So we want to exclude all these vendors that we're running a single job to include at the end of the day.
Is there even like an ICO3 of AP? I don't think there is. So you'd almost have to use some field in AP 10 that would put it into a grouping to run
We
on.
finally did a company group, so you can run like multiple companies and then maybe like 40 or something.
Yeah, that's another thing. PO 100 doesn't have a company group, so you have to run it really multi-company. You have to have all these jobs.
So can you do a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday?
That won't really work for what we're
No,
trying to
but
do.
the OR wants everything every day.
Yeah, but we run 2 different by location. You can actually do it by location. Because I have multiple 2-step IC 140 and then PO 100. They run at 1110, they run at 11.
Well, this is for a non-stock. This is for non-stock, not for
Oh.
Yeah, not for inventory.
What's the harm in creating, my understanding, what's the harm in creating a PO for a vendor that you don't need to have?
Yeah.
No, you're excluding this vendor, what's the harm in creating a PO for that vendor?
That's more from the purchasing side. They want to include or consolidate into one PO certain vendors at the end of the day. Corey could probably answer that better than I could. I don't know exactly.
Is
what
it a
the
vendor
solution is,
restriction? They don't want 4 PO vendors? They don't want 4 POs from us? They only want 1?
Well, we do have some of the vendors that restrict us with the number of POs, if not, it's cost us more money.
I guess that's one reason. Another reason is they're trying to, some of these vendors they want to consolidate, my understanding is they want to automate them. So for those vendors, we worked it out so that everything on the PO can be perfect, they can be auto-released. So there's no manual review. That's a big thing I think that purchasing is pushing too. So there's certain vendors that, okay, we got all our ducks in a row, we can just automate the
They
thing
don't
once.
require us to touch them, we don't need account numbers, anything, I wanna try to auto and push more orders out, but.
Get rid of them.
I try, but I'll get up.
You come up to Geisinger? Okay. Because our AP department and purchasing isn't under the same person.
All right. Well, I think that's we're running out of time. So I want to thank RPI.
Thank
I mean, essentially, yeah.